What are the opportunities to minimize or mitigate, your sales tax exposure as you're going through that process, or just in general?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are some really good ways to minimize exposure, some of them unique to software companies. So 5 states offer business to business exemption, where if you're selling software into these 5 states, and you're selling the software to businesses as opposed to individual consumers, these states, even though they normally tax software, they will count these as exempt. And so the 5 states are Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, North Carolina, and New Jersey. And in some of those states, you have to actually proactively get an exemption certificate from the customer. So like North Carolina, for example. Whereas some states like Maryland, you don't have to get anything from the customer. It just applies based on your books and records. So the business to business exemption is helpful specifically for those 5 states. One question I get sometimes is, for companies that are selling to exempt entities, which again would be, like educational institutions, governmental agencies, resellers, those kinds of, nonprofit organizations. My clients sometimes, if they haven't dealt with sales taxes, sometimes they won't know how to sort of ask for this exemption certificate from the customers. And I just advise them just a very simple, hey, we're reviewing our sales tax records and notice we don't have an exemption certificate from you. Can you please, send us your exemption certificate? Or if you don't have one, you can ignore this message. Just a simple email. And that really, that's all you really need to do to figure out, to get your exemption certificates. And so it's like a 1-page document. And there's a number of rules around which states accept which exemption certificates. So that's something a third-party advisor can kind of help you sort through which ones can we accept and is it valid and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, getting those exemption certificates is also a key way to mitigate prior period exposure. And if you're selling to exempt customers, I advise for your onboarding process to right when you're onboarding a new customer to request their exemption certificate at that time. Just build it into your process. And then another way is if you are selling to larger, more sophisticated customers, if they may have already paid the tax. Technically, they're required to pay what we call a use tax, which is essentially the sales tax. And if you can get certification that they have paid that tax, then you are not liable as long as you get that documentation from them. And so we help our clients sort of request that documentation from their customers. And some states will allow you, this is the fourth one I'm talking about now, some states will allow you to apportion or allocate the tax if like my client's customer, the software business's customer, let's say they're engaging with an office in New York, their customer's office is in New York, but the users of their software are located all around the country. Some states will allow you to allocate the sales tax based on the number of users in that state. So like New York taxes SaaS and is one of the states that allows you to allocate the sales tax based on the number of users rather than just 100% tax in New York. So that's typically like a multiple points of use exemption is sort of how we refer to that. And then the last one, the fifth one, that's sort of less common is, you can enforce the provision in your contract or your terms and conditions with your customer that says, you, the customer, are responsible for sales taxes. Most of my clients have that language in their contracts, but most of my clients also don't enforce it because that's a tough conversation. Can you pay us $13,000 for the 3 years we didn't charge you sales tax or whatever?
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience that's an option that doesn't work very often. So.
Yeah, I've had maybe one client that successfully did it, and he is a CFO, and he had a unique small number of customers, that large customers, and so they were able to kind of work it out, I think, based on that unique sort of fact pattern. But pretty much everyone else, it doesn't work.
Yeah. But the flip side of that is I think people should understand that customers expect to be charged for sales tax. It's not a surprise. It's not something that they're going to negotiate unless they feel like they're exempt, and they'll get an exemption certificate. So you shouldn't be concerned in any way about complying and charging the sales tax, because it's going to be an issue for you if you don't.
Yeah. I can't tell you the number of times I've had my clients be pretty worried about starting to charge sales tax, only to sort of, once they actually start charging sales tax, none of their customers say a thing. It's it's very common.
Yeah.
Understandable though why they would be concerned about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Starting something from nothing when they haven't been doing it for a long time. Yeah.